This is Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie. Get your tape recorders ready because it's mixtape time.
Thank you, disembodied hot girl voice. This is Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie. I am Ernie.
And I am Ernie as well.
No, you are Robert.
I am Robert. Yay!
You have to keep this straight. And we've already went over this, why Robert comes first. It's all a matter of like showmanship or rhythm or whatever it was said at the time.
Cadence.
The cadence.
Yes. The cadence is what is important to the concept of the podcast. And the fact that, you are the one who intros the podcast. So that kind of makes sense for me to come first in name, since you come first in intro.
Okay, we'll just go on that.
Yeah.
So I felt that we should just have just a podcast at random or ad hoc, which apparently the definition of ad hoc changes depending on where you are in life.
Does it?
Yeah.
I think doesn't ad hoc start out when you're broke and you don't have any money, so you have to hock everything?
No, that's a different type of hoc.
No, but it's ad hoc.
That's like being in hoc.
That's in hoc? So your stuff's in hoc.
It's like falling off the wagon or being on the wagon.
Why is it different, though? It means the same thing.
No, if you're off the wagon, that means that you're doing something...
You're failing.
You're failing.
No, okay. So you don't want to be off the wagon.
No, you don't want to be off the wagon.
See, but then you're bandwagoning if you're on the wagon.
Yes, a lot of wagon wheel. So...
Okay.
There I was thinking about stuff for us to talk about. And, of course, one of the things I want to talk about, kind of like... It's a two-part thing. One, I took my daughter to go see Kubo and the Two Strings.
Is the two strings important to the story?
Yes.
I was just curious because it says Kubo and the Two Strings, so you assume that the Two Strings is part. I have not seen the movie. This is kind of whether the feel out of whether I want to see it or care enough to see it.
All right, so I saw it on Friday, which was like a special premiere, like ahead of time thing. But the theater I went to had several different showings that night, and my daughter, who is 5 years old, we saw the early showing, like the first showing, in like their deluxe theater, not 3D because she's spooked out by 3D.
No.
So
some people can't see 3D because it gives them headaches too.
No, she just doesn't like that sensation of like having stuff come at her. It freaks her out. So I'm okay with that. So we watched it in regular 2D, but it was a really nice theater. So there we were watching this, and mind you, there's like 4 other families in there. They're full-blown families. These are like adults and kids.
Not realizing what kind of movie it was.
Right. None of us had a clue. Like, I asked around to the other parents. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think this will be too scary for our kids? A lot of them are like, well, we don't know. If anything, we just talk them through it. Mind you, mine found 2 parts kind of disturbing, so she had to, basically, sit in my lap, which was okay, because literally there were 4 other families in there in this massive theater.
No, that's crazy.
So...
You all became fast friends, changed numbers, and you have tea on Sundays now.
No.
This is why you don't have friends. You see this?
This is true.
You don't talk to people.
I don't. I really don't.
Yes.
But I'm an outgoing person, I would like to think.
No.
No?
No, you're an introvert. You're an introvert with outgoing tendencies. You're outgoing when you're in a comfortable situation. So, when you're in your zone and you're with people that you know, you're very outgoing. But if you're uncomfortable with the people you're with, or uncomfortable in the situation, you close up like a clam. Which is fascinating to watch.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah. From an outside perspective.
So...
I'm gargantuan. I love everybody.
Oh, jeez.
So... Gargantuan? No, that's the right word. What's it called?
So, mind you,
Gregarious.
I don't want to, really spoil the movie to its core.
Spoil the movie. Nobody cares.
All right.
If they're listening to this, they know there's going to be spoilers. That's first.
Kubo and the Two Strings, I found it to be enjoyable. Okay. I thought it was probably the most original animated story ever told.
Really? Ever told? Ever?
Ever.
Really?
Original.
That's impressive, though.
I can't point to another cartoon where it stole from.
That's cool. And now did it steal themes from other movies that were not animated?
No.
Really? So completely original idea.
Completely original. In my view, anyways.
All right. And there may be other things that it may pull off if you just don't know, but it would be so obscure it doesn't matter.
Right. And it kind of falls in the same vein of people who watched Coraline, Box Trolls, things like that.
I was curious because the missus asked me if it was like Coraline or it might be similar to Coraline, and she said that's kind of creepy too. It has that creepy feel to it.
Yeah, it had a creepy feel to it. But I'm telling you, man, the choice in telling the story, doing it this way, was spot on perfect. The special effects were good.
Oh, that's nice.
It really felt 3D without it being 3D. So if you're going to think that you're going to get more out of it by watching it 3D, total malarkey. Watch it regular 2D.
And there's only so many movies out there, realistically,
that are shot in 3D.
or that need to be in 3D, or are better in 3D. Like, people are saying Star Trek Beyond is really great in 3D, for example.
For those 4 or 5 scenes, I don't know if it's worth the $10 extra dollars.
Yeah. Juice and squeeze?
No, I'm not saying that.
No, okay, fine.
So, we're watching it, and I'm like really into the story, but it's a very sad story because it starts off with like sheer tragedy, right? Single mother raising a child in ancient Japan, and
Feudal Japan?
oh yeah,
that's kind of cool.
and
There's a lot of original stories out of that nobody uses.
and she's endowed with magical properties, but you don't know why or how. And at the beginning of the movie, she's in the ocean and she slams her head on some rocks, and you could see the cut, and you see that that there's a bundle on the beach, and it's crying, and it's a baby. And when she takes the cover off, you see that the baby has a bandage over one eye. Apparently, the eye and the bandage is like soaked in blood.
Yeah.
So apparently, like something happened to the baby's eye. As we come to find out,
Is this Kubo?
this is Kubo.
Oh, okay.
And the mom goes on to, basically, she's almost catatonic.
Neat.
So he's basically taking care of his mom while he goes to the local village and essentially tells stories to the villagers, so that way they'll give him money, so that way he could buy rice and take care of his mom. So during the day, his mom's like in this catatonic state where she doesn't talk, she doesn't move. He helps her eat, he keeps her up and everything. He goes into town, but as soon as it gets dark, he comes back. And then as soon as it's dark, she a switch gets flipped, and she becomes her normal self and starts telling her stories about his father, who was a great warrior, and how like her grandfather was the Moon King, and the Moon King was so jealous about this relationship that he wanted to keep Kubo in the heavens, and the only way he could do that was by stealing his eyes. So he ripped out one of the eyes from Kubo. But the mother stopped him before he could get the other eye, and basically there was a huge battle between her sisters and her father, who was the Moon King.
And why was Kubo so special that they all wanted him?
Well, of course, the grandfather wanted to keep him, so that way he could be at his side, so that way he could be the next Moon King, right?
Oh,
Because
okay.
apparently he's eternal, but he himself is blind to the world. So he doesn't want this, he wants to be immortal. He never wants his story to end. But Kubo is the best of both worlds. Like, he's part of the heavens, but yet he has an end to his life, so he's mortal, and his grandfather doesn't want him to be mortal, and the only way to make him immortal is by taking away his eyes, so that way he can never see the world through mortal eyes.
Weird.
It is a great story. So he goes on this quest to stop the Moon King by getting his father's armor, the 3 pieces. There's a helmet, there's armor, and there's a sword. And he's put along this journey with like this little monkey that used to be a talisman that used to be with him, and also this beetle that's like a samurai who trained under his father. Well, spoilers.
They getting spoiled already?
Spoilers.
No, even more spoilers then. Okay.
The monkey and the beetle are his mother and father.
Wait, so the person who raised him is not his mother?
No, it is his mother, but in her dying breath, because she had to fight her sister for Kubo to get away, she put the last bit of her essence into this little talisman monkey.
Okay.
But she herself knew that her magic was fading and eventually Kubo will be alone. So she tried to find
something to put herself in.
something to put herself in. So,
Gotcha. Well, that's kind of cool.
yeah, so she's the monkey's the mother, the beetle's his father, and the beetle was his father, but the mother's sisters turned him into an insect because they thought of him as an insect. And they basically erased his memory.
Okay.
And then, spoilers, they both die.
That's just a damn depressing movie.
Yes, they both die. They kill the 2 ants, who are really cool enemies. They wear this mask over their real face, so they look like porcelain China dolls almost.
That's cool.
And they fly around. They have magic, and their father is the Moon King, which is Kubo's grandfather, and he ends up having this battle with his grandfather, and ultimately he ends up winning. And in his victory, the grandfather loses his memory of all that's happened, and the villagers basically tell him you were a good man, you were a good person. You know, they basically replaced this old history of being cruel and tyrannical with this kind of great life, and Kubo takes care of his grandfather, essentially. And,
Wow.
and his parents, like, it's very touching. And, like, he remembered, and his parents, you know, they basically talk to him through paper lanterns, and it's just visually stunning and everything, and it's really good. It is definitely not for kids under the age of 10.
Interesting.
Unless they're really advanced, and they're really into that.
Right, and they are interested in that type of story.
I mean, it is a really, really good story. It's really well told. I would recommend it. I saw it, you know, at around 5 o'clock on a Friday. I wouldn't go see it, like, during prime time or anything like that and pay, like, the premium price. But it's definitely a good watch. You wouldn't be disappointed. The other part of it is, it's like, you know, my daughter really was into seeing this movie. She's the one that really pushed it. So I was kind of proud of that. Like, me being a nerd, I never pushed my nerdiness onto her. Like, she came up with the whole, she likes Star Wars.
But she didn't like the movie, or did she?
She didn't like it as much as she thought she would. She admitted to that.
Which is kind of an interesting point for a 5-year-old to be making. It's like, I enjoyed it, but not as much as... I mean, even she didn't articulate it that way. And it's good to have that she has a personality. But kids are very flexible and learn quickly, so...
I mean, it was adorable when she told my parents about the movie. Like, she explained... Like, she got the movie. She understood it. She just didn't like it that much.
Which is fair enough, and that's just a mature attitude.
I mean, I think she enjoyed probably Zootopia more than this movie. Because Zootopia was more animated. You know what I mean? It didn't seem real to her, like she knew.
This one felt a little more real.
It felt a little real to her.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, not to spoilers on Zootopia, which I...
come on. It's been out for like 6 months
Well,
now.
and to be fair, I wasn't a huge fan of Zootopia, only because it was like every corny plot twist story in all of existence ever was used for this movie. Like, ever. It was so plot enabled by everything from the past. And it could have been so much better. I just didn't like that fact. It was a good movie for what it was. It was good animation. I liked the characters to a certain extent. But at the same point, I was kind of disappointed in that it was very played, plot-wise. It was very played plot. I was like, you could have done more.
Well, like Zootopia, like, they kept hammering us with the fact that their DMV was filled with sloths. Like, we get it. Like, adults would understand that joke.
Yeah.
People at the DMV are really slow, so they're like sloths.
Hey, I've had good experiences at DMV, so I don't know about all that.
Me, that type of humor doesn't really, like...
Yeah, doesn't do anything.
It's like saying all postal workers are crazy or on the verge of snapping.
Well, they are, but...
Are they?
No.
No.
They're just like everybody else, except they're postal workers.
So... my whole thing with Zootopia and The Secret Life of Pets, and then watching the
Secret Life of Pets was bad, right?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched it, my daughter watched it, and literally the only two parts of the movie that she liked was the very beginning, which is when the owners all left, and you saw what each pet was doing once they left, and then when the owners returned, when you saw the pets' reactions, which was magical. It seemed like Zootopia and The Secret Life of Pets, what they both felt like was like, they started off with the story and took it as far as they could go, so they merged another story with it just to make it whole. And the two stories really didn't match well.
Fair enough. Another one that we both watched recently was Star Trek Beyond.
Yes.
And again, and I enjoyed it.
Yes.
It was a good, you would call it
compared
popcorn
to
movie.
But compared to the first one...
Well, nothing can compare to the first one of anything, to be fair to a certain extent. Very few things.
But no, it had a different feel.
It did. It felt formulaic. It felt...
Well, at the beginning of the movie, they lose the freaking ship.
Well, they always do. But it felt more formulaic, and you could see the formula. I mean, like, the bad guy wanted to take over... I mean, spoilers.
Yeah,
the bad guy wanted to take over the universe. He wanted to release a biovirus, blah, blah,
common
blah.
enemy that you had to get two different groups
together.
Blah,
blah, blah. And, again, there wasn't really a whole bunch of backstory as to why. There wasn't really a whole bunch of, oh, this is a villain that we've seen before. It was a whole new villain. And it's like... and you just wrapped it all up in one episode to a certain extent. The best part of the movie for me was actually the evolution of the friendship between Spock and Kirk. I felt, for my money, that was what was worth it for me. The interpersonal relationship. You mentioned this before. I've mentioned this before. It's Star Trek specifically, out of all this sci-fi fantasy stuff, tends to be more about getting to know your inner self as you explore outer space. It's about interpersonal relationships. How do you handle situations? How do you handle your life? All that good stuff. So for me, I feel that's a big part of that particular movie. Better or worse. The villains were particularly one-dimensional. Wasn't a huge fan of that. I'm usually a fan of Star Trek stuff, to be fair. Like the first one, I love the second one. They're kind of getting a little watered. And I'm just not a fan of that. There's some good characters. There's some good, meat there. And they're watering it down with crappy villains and crappy scenarios.
Well, let's not kid ourselves. The next movie is going back in time to Captain Kirk's father, which is Thor. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth, which was like in the first movie for like 5 minutes.
Right. How are they going back? How do we know? You saw.
Well, that's the storyline that they're going to go with. Don't know what's going to happen, but apparently it involves the whole time thing, and because everything got reset in the first movie, that opens the door up to all these different timelines.
Well, we already know there's like 4 or 5 different timelines if you've watched all the Star Treks all together. There's easily 4 different timelines that have existed.
I myself, I was a fan of the reboot, and I left the first movie like, okay, that was fun. I mean, because let's be honest, the first version of Star Trek movies, when I was a kid growing up, nobody ran in those movies. There were no big explosions or anything in those movies. It wasn't like a lot of action. There was a lot of talking. And these movies were like almost, I wouldn't say 180 degrees different.
A lot more action, a lot less talking.
A lot more action, and a lot more like...
And again, I think the dialogue and the talking and the writing was really what made Star Trek Star Trek. It's not supposed to be a big action thriller. I mean, a few little action spots here and there, fine, whatever. But it's not meant to be a typical action sci-fi movie. It's supposed to be dialogue and story-driven. And
for me, honestly, like, as a kid, like, growing up with the two, like, I had more exposure to Star Trek than I did Star Wars.
It was more all over the place.
Star Trek was everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Star Wars was very small.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it did well in the movies, and then they had the toys, but, like, literally, like, every week, you could see Star Trek. You couldn't see Star Wars on the TV every week.
No, it wasn't going to happen, unless you're watching the Ewok special. Over and over again.
Or the cartoons, the Saturday cartoons.
I never watched that. That was actually a little before my time, I think.
Some of them were good.
Were they?
Yeah, some of them were good. But the new Star Wars animation is good. Rebels is awesome.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But like looking at the two, like part of the reason why I gravitated towards Star Wars was, to me, that looked more like a future. Like everything looked used and worn. It had battle scars. It had dirt on it. Everything in Star Trek was really clean and like very like crystal, and like their uniforms were always well pressed. They never got like bloodied or anything, except for Star Trek 2.
Yeah, they said there was some Star Trek that had some blood in it.
Totally flipped that around.
Well, but to be fair, it's supposed to be Gene Roddenberry's vision was a utopian future. There's no reason for that.
Did you ever watch that College Humor site that I sent you, Star Trek versus Star Wars?
You said that a long time ago.
Yeah,
I've watched that.
Oh my gosh, that is beautifully done.
Yeah.
Anyone out there that can YouTube it, College Humor, Star Trek versus Star Wars, and it is just incredible. It's a lot of the things I thought about growing up, and like some of the things that came out. One of the things I think the Darth Vader character came up with, okay, I solved Star Trek in 2 steps. 1, don't be racist to aliens, and 2, be nice to Data.
Yes, always be nice to Data.
Always be nice to Data.
Don't piss off Data. You don't want that.
And they're like, and he's like, and how can you respect the toughest guy in your show always gets his ass beat, and it was Worf.
Nice.
Yeah, he always gets his ass beat.
Yes, that was funny.
No, and that's my thing. Like, the Star Trek franchise, as good as it is, it's still making money. We're going to see another Star Trek movie. Okay, but you know what? This last one...
Well, and to be fair...
I'm just glad I didn't pay for it.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, too, that Star Trek really fits better in the small screen. The movies were okay, even the old movies were okay, but it really was built for small screen. It was built as an episodic, segmented pieces. Like, filling it out to 2 hours just is a little too much. There's just not that much story in a single shot.
Well,
And,
kind of like what they do in Flash. Like, give me 18 hours to tell a story rather than 2.5.
Mm-hmm. Or it's too crammed in.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing on episodic versus TV, is when you're watching an episodic TV show versus a movie, even a trilogy of movies, you're losing a lot of times the touch point of the character, that plot and character development. You watch Flash, you watch the episodes, and you're becoming closer with the characters than you would ever be able to do in a movie, especially if you're coming in blank. You have no clue who these characters are in the movie.
Kind of like Walking Dead. Like, you could see Rick's progression from going from the good guy to the okay, this guy is kind of teetering here on some of his stuff, and
finally just turning.
Finally, this guy's he's evil.
Yeah, and he's the leader of this group.
Yeah, and at one point you're like, oh my gosh, someone has to stop this guy before he
seriously hurts somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it did all in protection of his family, quote unquote. But,
his son and his daughter.
Yeah. But, so that's kind of the thing there. So what else did you say you had two things? Is that your two things? Or that's your
the other thing is me, helping to raise my child.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I like to do is I like to show her stuff like from my world. Like I show her DC, Marvel, comic books, things like that. And while we were walking out, the movie poster on the wall as we were walking out of the theater, she just stopped and stared at it, and it's literally the poster for Wonder Woman. And it doesn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's Wonder Woman just standing there in that World War I look, that armor that she's wearing. And she's just standing there. And there's nothing else in the poster except for her. And she's just there staring at it, like it captured her imagination. And I was like, honey, what do you see? And she says, Diana. That's Diana. That's what you call Wonder Woman. That's Wonder Woman's name. It's Diana.
Yeah.
And I was like, a part of me was so proud. And the other part of me is, wow, am I pushing this on her? Or is she really liking this? I mean, literally, she likes it.
Did you tell her about Wonder Woman?
No, we watched Wonder Woman cartoons. She watched, the whole, birth of Wonder Woman.
Okay, so she has a reference point.
Yeah.
Well, and again, you hope to impress upon your kids nerdisms, if you will. But it really depends on what sticks. Like for my son, he's all about the nerd. He has huge friends that are nerd about games, about this, about that. So there's no real worry there. He's into everything. My daughter, again, a little bit different. She likes some stuff. She likes like the stuffed animals, the Pokemon. She likes some games. She keeps thinking she's a tomboy. She's not. But she likes to think of herself as such. And I was like, fine. You are what you are, but you're not a tomboy, but whatever, by the classic definition. She likes Hulk. That's her big thing. She's a big Hulk fan, so she has some stuff that she likes, and there was no particular reason why she should like Hulk versus any other superhero character, but she likes that. That's her thing. And, that's kind of where you gotta take the step back and say, look, I'm going to show them stuff. I'm going to introduce them. But like my son, I was talking to him briefly about Suicide Squad, and he's like, yeah, Dad, I have no interest. No interest. It is what it is. But I think the important thing is to expose them to a variety of things and then just see what they actually like. And what the things are that they like that really will impress upon them the fun of the stories, the fun of the concepts, without actually having to force upon them. Sharing and showing is not the same thing as forcing, in my opinion. So one of the things that came up recently for me in my life of nerd and all the other fun was trying to just figure out what is the biggest firsts for me in my life of being a nerd. What are those first moments that you remember as being a nerd? What are the first things you were exposed to for the first time that just made a significant impression on your life? For me, there was a couple. The first Mortal Kombat movie made a huge impression on my life. Playing certain video games, obviously, there's this old bubble game where you were this little guy at the bottom of the screen and you had to shoot at all these bubbles. And I don't remember the name of the games that saved my life, but it's one of those games that just stuck out in my mind. Obviously, Star Wars wasn't as huge for me as a first because I wasn't at the right age for it. But Gremlins was one of the first movies I saw that scared me as a really little kid. And those are kind of some of the things. The Matrix, the first Matrix, made a huge impression on me as far as my worldview. So obviously for you, I would assume first and foremost comes Star Wars.
Yes.
That made the biggest one. But what other things and other genres made a real impression to you in your first experiences of them?
Well, one thing that I found growing up on military bases is very clicky, and I covered this in the last episode when talking about how I could relate to the show Stranger Things on Netflix.
Right, yes.
You know, it's that
great
group of
show.
kids.
Not my cup of tea, but a great show.
It's that group of kids that basically they were in a small, tight-knit group with common interests that nobody else understood. Like, they got it, they understood it, and that was okay with them.
Well, it was Dungeons and Dragons.
Right, and that's kind of like how I was as well. Like, Dungeons and Dragons, like, literally, in the school, like, commonly, people who played Dungeons and Dragons, they were nerds. So they were kind of picked on. But then behind closed doors, some of those cool kids wanted to be in on the games.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were so curious as, what the hell are you guys talking about? That you guys could be up till, like, 5 o'clock in the morning doing this.
Mm-hmm. It's a video game come to life. You know, that's really what it ends up being.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed Dungeons and Dragons. I played other variants of Dungeons and Dragons myself. And it's an imagination. It's building a story, and that's really what a lot of that experiences are. It's this exposure to a unique story.
Plus, you know, it had its own language.
Oh,
and now
yeah.
it's coming into hipster language, unfortunately. But like,
well, a lot of things are with nerd. I mean, that's the challenge, is that it's becoming popular in a very large sense. So stuff that used to be secret code.
Yeah, it used to be like just belonging to us, like the shirts with the pictures of the die on them.
Yes.
The 20-sided die.
Yes.
Like really, do you even know what die are? Like there was the 8-sided die, there was the 4-sided, there was the 6-sided. You know, there were all these different dies.
I still have a whole bunch.
There was even the 100, which you only used to get hit points when you were creating characters.
No, you used to, if you were a DM or a dungeon master, as it used to be called. It's changed it to storyteller or something like that. For generating random treasure.
Okay,
it was used as a percentile.
That,
yeah, it was percentile. They use it more now. I don't remember in the classic rules. But one of the big things about that too was the archetypes. Was the big origins of the archetype characters were built from that. The wizard was this, the warrior was this, the elf was this, the dwarf was this, and that kind of came out of that from all those classic TV movies at that time, or books.
Yes, they were all books.
They all came from the book story, and then creating those characters and reliving that.
And I just remember like guys like really putting their souls into like their own like characters. Mm-hmm. Like they named them, they birthed them. You know, they had this attitude amongst them, and they were totally the opposite.
And they made the minifigs too.
Yeah, but we never did that. Unfortunately, no? we weren't fortunate like you guys.
Us guys, we used the little plastic orcs. Remember the little plastic green orcs?
Yeah,
and the
but
red
we didn't
dragon?
even have access to that.
Really?
Yeah, we just had our minds. We had our sheets of paper, which had our character info on it,
Yeah, sure.
And then we keep an extra sheet of paper to do all the damage and all the stuff we would gather through the campaign, and then at the end we would update our character sheets because the character sheets came pre-printed, like they came already templated out and everything.
Right.
And then we had our own, which when I got my Apple IIc, the first thing I did on my Apple IIc was create a sheet.
No, nice.
A D&D sheet for my characters and my friends.
Now you can go online and literally digitally create and calculate everything on a online form and then print it.
Yeah, it's just amazing so be it. I don't want to be that guy. Like kids have it easier, but like my thing was like cane. That was the thing. Like you could talk about and like literally like because I played sports growing up, so I was kind of like in that middle range. Like I was really smart to be playing like football and baseball and soccer and all that.
Do you have to be dumb to play them though?
But no, but like most of the guys I played with had no interest in this stuff. Like to them, like the only thing they ever thought about was sports. Mm-hmm. Like they would, like during football season, it was all about football. During baseball season, it was all about baseball. You know what I mean? They didn't have any other interests. I'd hang out with them, but I'm like, yeah, this gets kind of boring, you know, batting practice, you know? Mm-hmm. And then we end up like having a sleepover somewhere and we're just sleeping. I mean, but I go over to these other guys' house, we play Dungeons and Dragons. The dad's like, okay, guys, have fun. I ordered a pizza for you guys. There's a ton of soda in there. Have fun. I'm going to be in my room asleep. So he'd be in his room asleep. We'd be out in the dining room, and we're playing till the sun came up.
Mm.
I mean, pizza box empty soda cans everywhere, and we're still going. I mean, it totally threw us off for the next 2 days.
Of course, yeah.
But then, like,
Totally
on
worth
Monday,
it.
we're talking about it, and we're back to our old routine. Like, you know, this guy was, like, you know, in this other group where, like, all they listened to was heavy metal. This other guy was, like, clean cut, and he was into ROTC. This guy was jock. But when we all get together on Saturday nights at my friend John's house, we were all just gamers. We're all, like, D&D gamers, man.
Yeah. There's a great shirt that you rolled. There's there's an orc, and you roll a 1, and the orc just gently caresses your back and makes you uncomfortable. There's some great shirts out there for it, but yeah, it's gotten to a point, and that's just an example of how it's gotten very hipster, I guess is the word you'd use, where it's gotten cliche almost to a point where it's making fun of itself.
Right.
But there are still serious gamers out there, but it's lost some of its edge because it's now, and here's where it gets really kind of depressing. I don't know how many young kids or kids of your age when you played are actually into it these days. I think it's all digital. I think it's all phones and all online gaming and stuff. Yeah, there's an app and all that, which is fine, which is a different version of gaming. But I can almost say the largest population that still do D&D of any sort are those guys who grew up with it, who are still trying to recapture that sense of when they were kids doing it. That it didn't matter where you came from, it didn't matter who you were.
Yeah.
In here, you are a gamer. In here, you are whatever character you are. You're all on a quest. And recapturing that is such a hard thing to do because it ends up being psychological. It ends up being, can you get back to that place where you were as a nerd in that old day? Recapture your youth.
Yeah, I remember being introduced to it by this one guy who I thought was just like, he knew everything about Dungeons & Dragons until I started, I guess it kind of slipped out, and there was these two guys, I guess you would call them now metalheads, and they overheard, and they were like, you guys D&D? And I was like, yeah, I play with this one dude, Patrick, over here. And they go, really? Is he any good? I'm like, I don't know. He's the only one I've ever played. He goes, come on over to my house Saturday night, and we'll see how good he is. And these guys were really serious. Like, it totally blew my mind. These were guys that I would totally not think they were into D&D. Like, they knew the rules. You know what I mean? Like, they played hardcore rules. And I mean, my gaming went up. Like, I went to other places where, like, these guys totally, like, took it to another level. But, like, you would never know it. You know what I mean? Like, you would never imagine. And, like, I went to a place not too long ago where they did gaming like that. And I could see the tables. I could see the guys there. And I was telling the GF and my daughter, and they were like, what are they doing there? I'm like, oh, they're doing a campaign right there. That's D&D. And, like, I could see are they called storytellers or dungeon masters? Because I still call them dungeon masters.
It depends on the type of version you're playing. Because nowadays, everything looks like D&D, but there's, like, 12 different varieties of game.
No, I think this was D&D for sure.
Because Palladium is another system that's very popular right now. It's very similar to D&D, but it's a much larger world set. So a lot of people are playing Palladium. I'm in a Palladium game every once in a while that I play, and they're called storytellers in Palladium.
But to be honest with you, if I could have, like, recapture that again, I'd want to see if those guys would be interested in doing, like, a weekend, like, D&D thing. Just out of curiosity. I don't know if they're still out there or not. I don't know if they're alive. I never kept up with the guys from high school.
Well, we occasionally do a D&D game. I mean, you can always come on and do a D&D game.
Yeah, but it's different. I don't know you guys. I knew these guys.
Well, yeah, if they're still alive. Yeah,
they're still alive.
Yeah, I was saying, and where do they live?
Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly. We're here.
But, you know, that would be the one thing that I said that probably got me into my nerdom, where I knew, like, wow, I really am a nerd about this. Like, there's no way I can go around touting this, like, wear the t-shirts and wear the hats and all that other stuff.
No, not like Pokemon.
Oh, the Pokemon's awful.
Yeah.
That is just awful. That is a I have no words to describe my disdain for it.
But see, I'm a nerd about that, though. But I'm not obsessive. It's the same thing with D&D. You're a nerd about it, but you're not obsessed with it. It's not all you ever talk
like if
about.
If they took it away, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, my world means nothing now.
Well, you might be.
Well, there's not much there. but no, D&D, like, that would be like the one thing, like, if I could put my finger on it, like, wow, I even had to take a step back, like, wow, I know way too much about this.
There's nothing wrong with that, but as long as you're not obsessed. Like right now, I'm totally obsessed with the world of the stories from Assassin's Creed, because I'm playing Assassin's Creed 2. I'm really involved in the stories. That's a very fascinating story. One of the things that you actually get a kick out of this, because you love Tesla, and the Tesla car and stuff.
Yes.
And the theory was, and of course it's placated with a little bit, or played with a little for the story of the concept of Assassin's Creed, which is there's this group of Templars, and the Templars are evil. Well, they're not evil. They just want to take over the world by controlling the world and make it a better place because they'll control everything. The Assassins are, no, people need to be able to control themselves, but we would like to fight for peace.
Okay.
So similar concept, different way of going about it.
Okay.
So in the story, Thomas Edison is a Templar. And one of the things he does is he wants to destroy Tesla. And the reason
Which isn't far from the truth.
Actually, and they just play with the story of why. And basically, the theory was that Tesla wanted to build a World Wide Web, or the Internet of sorts, way before everything else, and wanted to give electricity away for free and let everybody have the access to the power. Edison didn't want that. He wanted it controlled.
Right.
So, what's the common current that everybody uses now? DC, right?
Right.
So what Edison did, and it was a horrible footage, but what Edison did, and this is a real footage, this is a real thing that he actually did, was he took the AC current and electrocuted a circus elephant to show that it was dangerous. So people would use DC and only use their powerful source of electricity.
Which is true.
Which is true. So it took that story and twisted it just a hair to match with the story of the game. So it opens up a whole plethora of stuff, and it's really cool because it's very nerdy, and if you love history, you'll love the game. And it brings you into a world where you're interacting with history itself. And a lot of people think, oh, it's Assassin's Creed, it's all killing people. Not really. I mean, there is. I mean, that's kind of the fun of it. But there's this history element to that's really kind of cool. And I was never a big history buff. But it's one of those things where you can really get into it and really enjoy it and be passionate about it. But it's not my life. If I stopped playing it tomorrow, I'd find something else. It's like Magic the Gathering. Same thing. I used to be a trainer. I could train people in how to play Magic the Gathering. I'm not that way anymore, but I was. And it's a difference between being obsessive and being just enjoying nerd things. And I think that's kind of where you were at, what you were saying with your Dungeons and Dragons. If they took it away, you wouldn't be, in tears. You'd miss it, but it's not your world.
Right. And my thing is like, with my daughter, raising her into these type of things, I would much rather her be like the nerdy girl in class than like that girl who's watching all those reality shows.
Or the diva.
Oh.
And that's just, I'm sorry. And I understand, and there's certain parts of certain cities in the state in which we live that are that way, that are the upper crust. And it's not necessarily the rich people, because rich people can be down to earth. It's
rich people like a good deal.
Yeah, just as much as anyone else. It's a particular set of people that want to act like they're rich, even though they're actually very upper middle class, but they like to show off how successful they are, and things always have to be just so because they make the money.
It's a measurement.
It's a measurement tool. Those are the people that really piss me off. And that's really what I don't want my daughter, and I'm sure you don't want your daughter, to become that person.
No, I don't want her to think that happiness equates to some sort of physical item.
Right.
Like, you're not happy unless you have a house. You're not happy unless you have this car. You're not happy unless you have this income.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally not into those measurements whatsoever.
Right. And then they are important to have those
life.
things.
Yeah,
it's life, and you want them to be successful. But, and my daughter is definitely nerdy, but she's a physical girl. She's not a studious girl. She's a physical girl. She's smart, but she likes doing physical stuff. She's an athlete. My son, not so much. He's very smart, he's very nerdy, but he's not very much an athlete. They're very different types. But that's okay as long as they are able to become well-rounded individuals, not obsessed about the physical and the accolades and the money and the status and the degrees, and it's all about, it's not. It just isn't. So
it's kind of like putting that pressure on your kid before it even happens, like,
mm-hmm. trying to plan
being
out their
told
lives.
my daughter's going to this university because that's where I went to and that's what's going to make her happy because that's what made me happy. I'm like, well, what if she doesn't want to go to university? What if she gets a trade and makes a butt ton of money doing a trade?
Yeah. Or becomes a podcaster. Makes tons of money that way.
Like me?
Like you, yeah. You have that podcaster money.
I got that podcast money.
Yeah, you do. You're very well.
That should be a bumper sticker.
What? Podcast money?
Yes.
Yeah, we can make that.
The disembodied hot girl voice says podcast equals money. Yeah. Beautiful.
That'll be a wonderful thing.
Yes.
That'll be a wonderful thing.
Merchandising.
Yes, that is our next step, is figuring out some merchandising. Hey, if you guys have an interest in seeing us make stuff, let us know. We actually are, right now the next con, if you guys are coming out, is going to be Animate Fort Lauderdale, or Animate Florida. It's in Florida, Fort Lauderdale Convention Center this year.
Oh, okay.
So they moved it. So it's Animate, I think calling it Animate Florida, and we're going to be at the con, and we are going to actually be passing out business cards, so we're going to get a little promotion going on, see if we can get people. But at least I will be at con. I don't know if Ernie's going to be able to make con this year or not. I hope he can. I'm going to try.
I'm going to try.
If we do, we'll probably do some podcasting from con, be hanging out. So if you are a fan of the show, come at least see me. If not me and Ernie, I'm guaranteed to be there. So, but we're definitely looking to kind of expand our audience a little bit, and we want to see what you guys think about how we might go about doing that. If there's suggestions you guys have for us, as always, don't hesitate.
No, yeah, fire them away.
Yeah, we like suggestions. We like getting them in person as well as over the interwebs.
Interweb,
and
yes.
all our sources.
The Book of Face.
The Book of Face and all the rest of them. Yes.
And the Twitter.
The Twitter. Yes. We aren't on Twitter actually.
We're not on Twitter?
No. I didn't find Twitter useful really, because we're on Instagram. We're on. No, I'm thinking Tumblr. We're on Twitter. We're not on Tumblr. Similar, but not the same.
I like Twitter better.
Twitter's okay. I'm okay with Twitter. We have a lot of Instagram followers, though.
Yes, Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, we're big on that. But I really want to try and get our audience to really kind of contribute and share with us their experiences of our podcast, everything else. We're also thinking about doing a new short podcast, which will be like a 20-minute segment, and we'll figure that one out and maybe do a couple of those as well, keep the things fresh and real. But yeah, that's about it. I'm good to go. Are you good to go? You cover everything you wanted to?
I think so.
Yeah?
I got some other stuff left in the
can?
In the can.
Okay.
In the bag.
Well, we always have more, right? There's
this never ends.
Never ends.
Nerdum never ends.
Nerdum never ends, guys.
That's another bumper sticker.
Oh, there you go. Nerdum never ends.
Disembodied hot girl voice says.
Nerdum never ends.
Nerdum never ends.
There you go. We'll have to get her to do that one. All right, guys. Well, again, follow us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the usual. Please, of course, subscribe to us if you haven't. We love subscribers. And we always want to hear your feedback, sound bits, and everything. If you'd like to do a show with us, be on it.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you as our
those
guest.
are great episodes when we have guests on.
Yeah.
Come on,
Some
talk about
of the good
anything you
ones.
want. If you have something to plug it. It's free.
Yeah, absolutely. Free advertising is no
Free
problem.
advertising.
We do have a group of followers. We're getting there, so
Yes.
it's a good thing. So, Ernie, if you would be so kind.
Peace out.